I asked, and you answered. Hi, Shanna Rowe Jackson here from Caution Artist at Play. I recently put out an art haul video where I showed you all the fun supplies I had stashed away for future reviews, and I asked you what you would like to see next, and a lot of you expressed interest in seeing the QoR watercolors. So that's what we're going to do today. I am going to be taking colors from the 2 sets that I have of these. I have the 6 earth colors and then just their regular set of 24. And I will be putting them in pans and creating my own palette with them. And then of course I will do a piece with them and talk about how I like them and why I chose the colors I chose, etc. So let's get to it. Okay, so let's take a closer look at each of these sets. They come in a nice tin. This is what the top looks like. Trying not to be too crazy with it because I got paint on the other side. And on the inside, it actually has a fun little palette. And mine is nice and messy because I have used these paints in the past, or at least this set. And I just got finished swatching them a little while ago. And so this is what the palette looks like, all messed up. And this set has 6 in it, and it's just the earth tones. We have the maple yellow, transparent brown oxide, Venetian red, indigo, sap green, and the raw umber. Each of the tubes has the color name, the light fast rating, the pigment information, and the series listed on it. Now, I was looking and comparing this set with my 24 set, and it does look like we have a couple duplicates, and that would be the sap green and the raw umber. So I'm keeping that in mind when I make my palette. And then of these 6, this one has the lowest light fast rating, which is a light fast 2, which isn't too bad, but I decided I want to make this palette really light fast. So I'm not going to be using that one either, so I'm turning those upside down just to notify myself when I start to fill my palette. Now, I will be using this for sketchbook sessions and things like that, so these paints won't go to waste. However, I want to create a palette that if I decide to make a really expansive artwork that I plan to sell, I don't have to worry about it fading. So let's take a look at the swatches for this set. Nice, earthy, beautiful. Again, I have used this set before, and I actually have a fun illustration I did, I think in my sketchbook around Christmas time, using this set. Yeah, so I did this fun little flowy Christmas tree and this wreath using just that palette, so that kind of gives you an idea of the colors that you're getting in that palette. So that's that palette in a nutshell. Again, they're all extremely light fast other than the indigo, but that's still, you know, a light fast 2 is still really light fast. So fairly light fast set, beautiful colors, great specialty set. I will continue to use this set on its own even after I create this palette. Okay, so our set of 24. Oh, again, I have already turned over the ones that aren't as light fast, and I left the ones that were duplicated in the other set right side up because I'm just going to pull them from here and put them in the palette. And this also has the fun palette on the inside of the tin. The front cover is much more colorful. You can kind of see the difference here. All right, so let's take a look at these swatches. They're still drying, but oh my gosh, these were so fun. They're so flowy, and the way they just, I don't know, the way they spread out in water is very exciting. Now let's take a look at the colors here. When I first drew out the leaves to do the swatches, I went through and I looked at the colors and I wrote down the light fastness on them. And then I kind of just wrote it out up here. 7 out of the 24 are good or to light fastness. The rest are highly light fast. So that's not bad at all. And then I also decided to go through and kind of put like a signal for which ones had multiple pigments. And it looks like 20 out of the 24 have single pigments in them, and then 4 of them have multiple pigments in them. And that's not that bad. I don't really care either way, but I know some people do, so I thought I'd mention that information. And then I put a star next to the ones that are duplicate in my other set. And then let me look at this one. So this one's 3 for 3. 3 of them have multiple pigments, 3 of them don't. And then, of course, I already mentioned one of them is a 2, and the rest are extremely light fast. So that's not that bad. So far, like out of these 2 sets, they're all really light fast. The lowest is a good, I think. So, I mean, that's not bad at all. And there's a lot of single pigment if that is something that you are interested in. Now, let's talk about the colors. We have quinacridone magenta, permanent alizarin crimson, cadmium red medium, permanent scarlet, transparent pyrrole orange, dairy-lied yellow, nickel azo yellow, cad yellow, primrose, green gold, sap green, viridian green, cobalt teal, cerulean blue chromium, phthalo blue green shade, ultramarine blue, dioxazine purple, Payne's gray neutral tint, raw umber, Van Dyke brown, raw sienna natural, burnt sienna natural, quinacridone gold, and titanium white. I also put kind of a line through so you could see which ones are transparent and which ones aren't. I am not all that excited about the titanium white. I don't think it's as... I don't know. I mean, it's a watercolor, so it's not going to be as opaque as like a gouache, but still. So that's what we have for our colors. I am going to take out the ones that I plan to do. I'm going to put them in a palette, and then I'm going to let those dry because I swatched these from the tube. I'm going to let them dry and see how well they re-wet. And then I'll do a swatch of what I have in my palette, and then I'll do a piece. So this is going to be kind of an extensive review. Okay, so I am just going through now and trying to put my colors in order. I've pulled out all the highly light fast colors, and then I'm just kind of trying to figure out which order I want to put them in. And I'm filling the pans, and as you can see, some of them come out really nice and smooth and flatten out nice and neatly. Some of them are a little bit gloopier than others, though. I'm not sure why that is, but I think they'll all still work just fine. And again, kind of going over what order I want to put it in, I decided to draw out a diagram to help me figure out which order I want to put them in once I put them in the set. And I also wrote down the pigment information, the light fast information, and also the names of each of the colors on the pans, so I have that information for when I get low on a color. Okay, as you can see here, the colors that I settled on are quinacridone magenta, cadmium red medium, permanent scarlet, dairy-lied yellow, cadmium yellow permanent, sap green, viridian green, raw umber, burnt sienna, raw sienna, nickel azo yellow, Naples yellow, titanium white, cobalt teal, cerulean blue, ultramarine blue, dioxazine purple, Venetian red, transparent brown oxide, and Van Dyke brown. Now, something that you may be noticing about this palette is that there's a lot of browns. There's a lot of yellowy brown, like natural yellow colors, and then just plain brown. And yeah, I'm not sure how I feel about that yet. And I honestly wish that I had some more greens. And if we look at the original swatch cards, obviously we know that the Earth Colors is a limited color palette, so it's understandable. But there were some kind of browns in here. But if you look at the 24 set, 5 of these kinds of colors, and Dairy-Lied kind of starts to go in that direction. Actually, and we have nickel azo yellow. There's a lot of those colors that just came straight from the 24 set. So that is something for you to consider. There's really only 2 greens in the 24 set. There's the green gold that kind of goes in between. You can add a little bit more blue or the teal or something to it to offset it a little bit, but it definitely has those yellow undertones. So that's something that as a tree-loving weirdo, I noticed. Like, I have plenty of the browns for the bark, but yeah, I was definitely a little bit, not disappointed, but it's definitely something that I noted. And then also, taking out the things that were only good light fastness or 2 and below, I did lose my neutrals. I don't have my neutral tint anymore, or the Payne's Gray, or even my indigo. And again, the light fast 2 isn't bad. It's between 50 and 100 years, but all the rest of them that I kept are supposed to be like 100 years and above. So I had a fairly small palette to work with, and this ended up working out perfectly for the amount of colors I had if I went according to the highest light fastness. So that's another reason why I ended up doing that. Oh, and the other color that I was kind of bummed about was having to leave out the transparent Pyrrole Orange, which was only a good light fastness. However, if I'm mixing the Dairy Lied Yellow and the Permanent Scarlet together, I could probably get a fairly close color. That would have been more of a convenience color, but I would like to see more greens overall. The blues are pretty good. You know, I've got 3 good blue ones in here, and it's a pretty good range. I'm glad I got to keep my teal and the cerulean. I love those colors for skies, and you can't go wrong with the ultramarine. My favorite color in this set is probably the Dioxazine Purple. Very excited about it. It's a very, very dark, dark color. That's going to help me when I want to come up with something that's akin to a black, since I don't have my neutral tint or my Payne's Gray. Also, I will likely be mixing ultramarine blue and raw umber, because that's one of my favorite ways to get a nice colorful black tone to begin with. So I'm not so concerned about the fact that I don't have black. Now the white, I'm not sure how much I'll be using. We'll see in practice. So something else that I found to be interesting is that the tubes didn't mention the transparency level on them. I don't know if their 11 ml tubes do. Like they're single tubes if you buy them open stock. The ones that come in these sets are only 5 ml, but it looks like you can also buy some 11 ml as well. And then I was looking at the color chart that comes in their pamphlet, and it doesn't really have any of the pigment information or anything on the chart itself. But there is a chart online that mentions all of the information, including transparency. I will link that in the description below so you can peruse it. That's one reason why I'm glad that I did like the little stem in the middle, so that I could see which colors were going to be opaque and which were going to be transparent. A lot of them are fairly transparent though, so I'm pretty happy with that. And then for this one, I actually just did my writing underneath so that I could test the transparency that way. And you can see the Naples Yellow is fairly opaque. The Cad Red, I think if you put quite a bit, ends up being opaque. Whereas the Cobalt Teal looks pretty transparent. The Viridian was pretty transparent. You could see, especially here in this swatch, definitely didn't come out as strong as some of the other colors. But yeah, so overall, these re-wet really well. I didn't have any issues while swatching them. It was a lot of fun, and I am really anxious to start my project. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to put on a little bit of music and get in the zone, and I'm going to paint a fun, pretty little sunflower. So let's see how they work in practice. Okay, so starting off on my little painting of a sunflower, I am coming in with some colored pencils to create some areas of masking. Because colored pencils are wax and oil based, they repel watercolor, and so they act as a wonderful masking tool for certain areas that I want to keep highlighted, like the veins of the leaves and just certain details in the flower. Then I'm coming in with light washes in the background to lay in the background leaves. And I am building up slowly. This is the Fluid 100 cold press watercolor paper. It's on a 6x8 block. And because these tend to be pretty flowy paints, I thought a cold press paper would work wonderful with them. And I was definitely pleased with these on this paper. As you can see, I am still just coming in and working on those leaves, building up texture. I was not a huge fan of the Viridian. It definitely takes a lot of layers to get the saturation that I would like. But when I mixed it with the sap green, it really kind of punched things up a bit. The sap green, winner, winner, chicken dinner. Love the sap green. Absolutely instrumental in this piece. I also brought in some of the teal with a little bit of the white mixture to create a waxy look on the highlighted parts of the leaves. The left side of the leaves tend to be a little bit more sunlit and have a little bit of a blue reflection from the sky, whereas the other side of the leaf has a little bit more shadow and has more of those warm colors because it's not reflecting the sky as much, so you're going to have more of the actual green color of the leaf. So you're going to see me go back and forth with that. The white was not overly opaque, but it actually worked really well for this. I was able to lighten up some areas, and mixing it with some of my other colors did make them a little bit more opaque and gouache-like, and it actually worked a lot better than I thought it would. I'm just kind of using some no-name generic brushes, and then I also have some Holbein brushes and some Zen Art watercolor brushes. I will link those in the description below as well. Now I'm coming in and getting closer to the flower. Also, the greens in the background behind the leaves, I tried to use more of my Viridian green for that to give it a cooler background so I could push the background behind and help the leaves come forward. And obviously the leaves are a lot warmer. I added some yellows and things like that. Now I am coming in and, oh, look at that yellow. It is so beautiful. I did a mixture of my Dairy Lied yellow with my Cad yellow. And then I also was coming in with some of those warm yellows and reddish browns to create the shading on the petals. This is a sunflower from my garden, and my husband loves to plant a variety of sunflowers. And so this sunflower in particular has a lot of warm colors closer to the center of the flower. So it's not going to be just a straight up yellow, which is one of the reasons why I took so many photos of these flowers when they were growing, because I knew I was going to want to paint them. I can't wait for these sunflowers to be back out again. This is exactly the kind of piece I needed right now because I just need the sunshine. We're so close. We are so close. We're in March. We're getting there. We're getting some warmer days, but there's also been a lot of rain here, and so I needed this sunshine. And funny enough, I was listening to some music when I was doing this, and I was listening to a little bit of Sheryl Crow, and the song Soak Up the Sun came on while I was painting this, and I was like, hell yeah! It was like so perfect. It really helped set the mood. All in all, this piece took around 3 hours, and I was so enthralled in it that I did it basically in one session. Normally, I would have to break that up over a few days, especially since I have other things going on. I was able to kind of set aside some time to just specifically work on this, and aside from bathroom breaks, I just worked straight through, and I didn't even realize how much time had passed until my husband came to the studio door with some supper. I was just so engaged in this, and I enjoyed myself so much. The colors are beautiful, they're vibrant, they lay down really well, and they layer exceptionally. I was really worried that the colors would try and lift below, but I was able to come in and just layer and layer and layer and work up to the saturation that I wanted to. As far as needing to lift colors, I did use a scrubber brush, and I used some Q-tips and a rag to lift some colors. Obviously, some colors are more staining than others, but I was able to lighten areas when I needed to for the most part. If not, then I was able to kind of find ways to work around it. But they are really beautiful and strong paints. I think most people watching this have probably heard of these paints and know that they have a pretty good reputation. And to me, they definitely hold up their end of the bargain. Again, I only had a little bit of issue with a couple of the colors. I feel like the Viridian could probably be a little bit stronger, but for the most part, the rest of the colors really made up for that. And I'm just coming in and trying to do those little details around the edges there. This part was the part that I was like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm gonna try it anyway. And I'm actually pretty happy with how it came out. Just because I was worried that the fine detail would get lost. But I think it came out pretty well. It's, you know, it's a representation. This is a painting. It's not a photo. I have to tell myself that. And so I am pretty happy with how those details came out. And then I'm just going through and adding a little bit more shadow and straightening up some edges and warming up some of the leaves because I want it to look like that yellow from the sunflowers kind of reflecting on those leaves and kind of bring it together a little bit better. I used mostly the dioxazine purple and whatever my darkest brown was in the middle and a little bit of the ultramarine. And I think it worked pretty well. And I also liked using the purple in the center of the flower because purple is a contrasting color to yellow. And so I think it really helped make everything pop, and it just makes for a more dynamic piece. And I'm putting some splatter in because it's watercolor. I have to use some splatter. Okay, aside from a few touch-ups, I think I am going to call this one done. I had so much fun with this. The colors were beautiful and vibrant and easy to work with and easy to layer. I was really, really happy with that. So let's talk about the colors that are in the palette. I pretty much used every color aside from the cerulean because I didn't really need that, but I used, I'm not sure if I really used any of the ultramarine either, other than maybe in some of the darker areas. But for the most part, I used all the colors, and I think that I definitely chose the right subject for me to use up all those yellows and browns. And overall, I really enjoyed myself, and I'm pretty happy with the color selection, though I do think eventually I will expand. I heard that they've come out with some new colors, so I'm going to look into that for when I'm able to shop for art supplies again. And then when I do, I will probably take these pans out and put it in a larger palette and then expand it from there. I don't know that I'll take any colors out when I do that, but I will maybe update you later on in a short or something like that. But overall, I'm pretty happy with this palette. I do like to paint a lot of natural subjects, and so if I had a few more greens, I think it would be perfect, though I was able to get a pretty good range here in the leaves and things like that just by mixing the colors that I had. And here is the scanned in version of the piece. I did a few touch-ups off camera, but not too many. I'm pretty happy with how it came out. Prints of this will be available on my print site as well as the original on my website. I will link that in the description below. Okay, friends, that's what I have for you this week. I hope that you enjoyed watching this watercolor palette come together. I had a ton of fun. Have you tried these paints before? Let us know in the comments below, and let us know what your favorite colors from the line are. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you next week. You have a fantastic day. Bye.